The pain shot through my hip like lightning as I hit the kitchen floor. I tried to push myself up, but my right leg wouldn't work right. Everything felt wrong, twisted, like something had broken inside me. "Mom, quit faking it," my son Marcus said, not even looking up from his phone. "Just get up and stop the drama." My daughter-in-law Bethany rolled her eyes, so hard I thought they might fall out. "She's always doing this attention-seeking stuff. Remember last month when she said her chest hurt?" I wanted to scream, but I could barely breathe. The fall had been real. The crack I heard when I hit the floor was real. But to them, I was just being dramatic again. 20 minutes later, when the EMT burst through the door, his face went white. "Get a stretcher now," he yelled to his partner. "We've got a serious hip fracture and possible head trauma." I couldn't move my right leg at all. Every time I tried to shift position, lightning bolts of pain shot through my body. But worse than the physical pain was hearing Bethany sigh. "Really? Right now?" she said, like I'd planned this to inconvenience her. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. The room was spinning, and I felt sick to my stomach. I think something's really wrong," I whispered weakly. "Marcus, I really can't get up," I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "Something's wrong with my leg." "It's probably just bruised," Bethany said, checking her makeup and her phone camera. "You just had the wind knocked out of you." But I knew this wasn't a bruise. At last, after what felt like forever, when Bethany realized I wasn't going to magically get better and clean up the mess on the floor before they left, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Suddenly, Marcus wasn't looking at his phone anymore. If this story about a mother's shocking revenge has caught your attention, make sure to subscribe to Her Real Stories. What happens when someone you trust the most throws you away like garbage? And what did that one phone call changed everything? This is just the beginning. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you, that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today. Let me back up and tell you how I got here, lying on my kitchen floor while my own family acted like I was putting on a show. My name is Natalie Brooks, and at 67 years old, I thought I had it all figured out. I'd raised my son Marcus as a single mom after his dad walked out when Marcus was 8. Richard, my late husband, came into our lives when Marcus was 12 and legally adopted him. Richard was the only real father Marcus ever knew. We built a beautiful life together. Richard and I started a small business together, a catering company that grew from our kitchen table to serving the biggest events in town. I handled the books, the planning, the customer relations. Richard was the chef, the creative genius who could make magic happen with simple ingredients. For 15 years, we worked side by side, building something we were proud of. We catered weddings, corporate events, charity galas. We employed 12 people at our peak. The money was good, but more than that, we were partners in every sense of the word. Marcus grew up in that business. He'd come home from school and do his homework in the office while Richard and I prepped for events. He learned to fold napkins before he learned to drive. He knew how to set up tables and arrange flowers and charm customers who came by the shop. I thought he understood what we'd built. I thought he appreciated the work that went into creating something from nothing. Richard died 8 years ago. Sudden heart attack at 59. Right there in our commercial kitchen while prepping for the Hendersons' anniversary party. I found him when I came back from the grocery store. The doctors said he was gone instantly, didn't suffer. I was devastated. Lost. The business was our baby, but I couldn't run it alone. The physical demands, the long hours, the constant pressure, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I sold it. Marcus was 32 then, already married to his first wife. Already settled in his own career in sales. He said He understood why I had to sell. Said he was proud of what Richard and I had accomplished. The sale gave me enough money to pay off the house and live comfortably on a small pension plus Social Security. Not rich, but comfortable. I thought I was set for life. What I didn't expect was how empty the house would feel. How quiet. How lonely. Richard and I had always talked about traveling when we retired. Seeing Europe, taking that cruise to Alaska, visiting the national parks. But we kept putting it off, saying there would be time later. There was always another event to cater, another client to please. After he died, I couldn't bring myself to travel alone. Couldn't imagine seeing those places without him. So I stayed in our big house with its 4 bedrooms and formal dining room and chef's kitchen that I barely used anymore. Marcus would visit once a month, maybe twice if I was lucky. Quick visits, usually with some excuse about why he couldn't stay long. His marriage fell apart 3 years later. He said they just grew apart, wanted different things. I tried to be supportive, but he didn't want to talk about it much. Then 2 years ago, he met Bethany at some work conference. She was 26 then, beautiful, bubbly, everything his ex-wife wasn't. They moved fast, engaged after 6 months, married 6 months after that. I liked Bethany at first. She seemed sweet, interested in family, excited about being part of our small family. She asked lots of questions about Richard, about the business we'd built, about Marcus's childhood. At their wedding, she pulled me aside and said, "I hope I can be the daughter you never had." It made me cry happy tears. After so many years of feeling alone in that big house, maybe I'd finally have the family I'd always wanted. When they came to me 18 months ago asking if they could move in temporarily while they saved for their own place, I said yes immediately. I was thrilled. The house would have life in it again. I'd have people to cook for, to take care of. At first, it was wonderful. I'd make big Sunday dinners, and we'd sit around the table talking and laughing. Bethany would help me with dishes, and Marcus would fix little things around the house that I couldn't manage alone. But slowly, things started to change. It started small. Bethany would make comments about how the house was outdated or too cluttered. She'd suggest we modernize the kitchen or open up the living spaces. When I said I liked the house the way Richard and I had made it, she'd smile and say, "Of course, it's your house." But the way she said it made me feel like I was being unreasonable. Marcus started coming home later and later from work. When he was home, he was always on his phone or laptop. Business calls, he said. Important client. The Sunday dinner stopped. They were too busy, had plans with friends, needed to get out and socialize with people their own age. People their own age. Like I was some old relic they had to tolerate. Then the real criticism started. "Natalie, did you know you've been putting the dishes away wrong? The glasses should go on the bottom shelf for easier reach. Natalie, that meat looks a little pink. Are you sure it's safe to eat? Maybe we should be more careful about food safety. Natalie, you left the front door unlocked again. What if someone had broken in? We really need to be more security conscious." Every suggestion was delivered with a sweet smile and concern for my well-being. But the message was clear. I was getting careless. I was getting old. I couldn't be trusted to run my own house properly. Marcus never stood up for me. Never told his wife that I'd been managing just fine for years before they moved in. He'd just nod along or change the subject. The final straw came last month. I'd been feeling chest pains and called Marcus at work, scared and wanting someone to drive me to the doctor. His voicemail said he was in meetings all day. So I called Bethany. "Oh, Natalie," she said, sounding put out. "I'm getting my nails done. Can't you just take an Uber to the urgent care? It's probably just gas or anxiety. You know how you worry about every little thing." I ended up driving myself to the doctor, chest still tight with pain. Turned out it was acid reflux, nothing serious. But sitting in that waiting room alone, filling out forms that asked for an emergency contact. I realized how truly alone I was. When I got home and told them about my day, Bethany said, "See, I told you it was nothing. You really need to stop panicking over every little ache and pain." Marcus nodded in agreement. "Mom, maybe you should think about getting some anxiety medication. This stress isn't good for you." That's when they started bringing up the senior living communities. "Just a look," Bethany said. "Just to see what options are out there. For the future." But I knew what they were really thinking. They were tired of living with the old lady. Tired of pretending to care about my health scares and my stories about the old days and my outdated furniture. They wanted me gone. The morning of my fall started like any other Tuesday. I was making breakfast for all of us: scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh coffee. I'd been doing this every morning for 18 months, trying to be useful, trying to show them I could still contribute something to the household. Marcus came down first, already in his work clothes. He had this new expensive suit, navy blue with thin pinstripes that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. "Morning, Mom," he said, grabbing his coffee mug. But he didn't really look at me. He hadn't really looked at me in months. His eyes were already on his phone, scrolling through emails or messages or whatever was more important than acknowledging the woman who'd raised him. Bethany came down next, her blonde hair perfect even at 7 a.m. She'd clearly spent time on it, blown out and styled like she was going to a photo shoot instead of her job at the marketing firm. She was 28 now, 12 years younger than Marcus, and she never let anyone forget how young and pretty she was. She had this way of moving through the house like she owned it, like she belonged there more than I did. She'd rearrange things without asking, moving my reading glasses so I couldn't find them, changing the position of the coffee maker, reorganizing my kitchen cabinets to be more efficient. "Natalie, we need to talk about something," she said, sitting at my kitchen table like she owned it. She was wearing this crisp white blouse and black pants that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Everything about her screamed young, successful, important. "What's that, honey?" I asked, trying to keep my voice cheerful. These talks never went well. They usually involved some new way I was supposedly making their lives more difficult. "Marcus and I have been thinking. This arrangement isn't working anymore. We need our space." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" Marcus finally looked up from his phone, but not at me. He was looking at Bethany, like they'd rehearsed this conversation. Like they'd planned exactly how to break it to the old lady that her time was up. "Mom, we're adults. We can't live with you forever." "But I thought you were saving money." I started, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "We've been saving," Bethany cut me off. "We found a nice apartment across town. It's got 2 bedrooms, a balcony, a modern kitchen. It's perfect for us." She said us like it was a dirty word. Like the idea of including me in their plans was ridiculous. "We'll be moving out next month," Marcus added, still not meeting my eyes. The bacon started smoking on the stove. I turned to flip it, my hands shaking a little. "Well, that's great. I'm happy for you both." But I wasn't happy. I was terrified. This big house would be so empty without them. The silence would be deafening. And honestly, with my fixed income from retirement, their help with bills had been keeping me afloat. They paid me $800 a month for room and board. Not much, but enough to cover the difference between my pension and the real cost of maintaining a 4-bedroom house. Without that money, I'd have to make some serious changes. Maybe sell some furniture, or cut back on groceries, or figure out how to reduce the heating bill in winter. "There's something else," Bethany continued, and her voice had that fake sweet tone she used when she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. "Other options?" "A senior living community," Marcus said, finally looking at me but not really seeing me. "Somewhere with people your own age. Activities. Medical care nearby in case something happens. I turned around so fast I almost dropped the spatula. You want to put me in a nursing home? Not a nursing home, Bethany said quickly, like the distinction mattered. A nice retirement community. We've been doing some research and there are some really lovely places around here. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. You've been doing research? You've been looking at places? Without talking to me. Mom, calm down, Marcus said, and there was irritation in his voice. Like I was being unreasonable for being upset that they'd been planning my future without me. We're just trying to help, Bethany added. We're worried about you being alone in this big house. What if you fall down the stairs? What if you have another one of your health scares and there's no one here to help?
The words hit me like a slap.
Another one of my health scares. Like my chest pains last month were just me being dramatic, looking for attention. I'm fine, I said firmly. I take care of this house just fine. I take care of myself just fine.
For now, Marcus said.
But Mom, be realistic. You're getting up there in years. Things are only going to get harder.
I'm 67.
Same difference, Bethany shrugged. My grandmother moved into assisted living when she was 68, and she loved it. All the social activities, the meal service, the housekeeping. She said it was like living in a hotel. But I didn't want to live in a hotel. I wanted to live in my home. The home Richard and I had chosen together, had painted together, had filled with our memories and our dreams. Look, Marcus said, checking his watch. He was always checking his watch when he talked to me, like our conversations had a timer on them. We don't have to decide anything right now, but it's something to think about. These places have waiting lists, so if you're interested, we should probably get your name on a few lists soon. I'm not interested, I said firmly. Bethany and Marcus exchanged another look. The kind of look that said they'd expected this reaction and had already decided I was being difficult. Well, Bethany said, standing up and smoothing her perfect blouse. Maybe you'll change your mind once you see what these places have to offer. I printed out some brochures for you to look at. She pulled a stack of glossy pamphlets from her purse and set them on the counter. Sunshine Manor Senior Living, Golden Years Community, Peaceful Pines Retirement Village.
All the names sounded the same.
All designed to make getting old and discarded sound like a vacation. Just promise me you'll look at them, Marcus said. Keep an open mind. That's when it happened. I was walking toward the table with their breakfast plates, trying to hold back tears, trying to process what they'd just told me, when my slipper caught on the edge of the rug. It was a small oriental rug that Richard and I had bought during our 5th anniversary trip to Turkey. We'd haggled with the vendor for an hour, laughing and holding hands while we pretended we didn't want it as much as we did. Richard always said it was the best $200 we'd ever spent because of the memory attached to it. I went down hard, my hip taking the brunt of the impact. The plates crashed around me, sending scrambled eggs and bacon flying across my kitchen floor. The pain was instant and awful, like someone had driven a spike through my hip bone. I lay there for 20 minutes, begging them to call for help, watching them finish their breakfast and gather their things for work. Bethany complained that she'd have to stop for coffee since I hadn't finished making it. Marcus, now 40 but acting like a spoiled teenager, was annoyed that he'd have to call his assistant to reschedule his morning meeting. Finally, when Bethany realized I wasn't going to magically get better and clean up the mess on the floor before they left, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Yes, we need an ambulance, she said, sounding put upon. My mother-in-law fell in the kitchen and says she can't get up. I don't know. She seems fine to me, but she's being very dramatic about it. Even while calling for help, she was dismissing my pain. The emergency room was bright and cold. Dr. Patterson, a kind woman about my age with gentle hands and tired eyes, came in with my X-ray results after what felt like hours of waiting. Mrs. Brooks, you have a fractured hip, she said gently. It's going to require surgery. We also found signs of a mild concussion from your fall. Marcus and Bethany were sitting in the corner chairs. Marcus looked pale, but Bethany just seemed annoyed that her day was ruined. She kept checking her phone and sighing loudly. How long will the recovery be? Marcus asked. 6 to 8 weeks for the hip to heal properly. She'll need physical therapy. And honestly, Dr. Patterson looked right at me. She's going to need help at home during recovery. This isn't something you can manage alone. I saw Bethany and Marcus exchange a look. The kind of look that said this was the last thing they wanted to deal with. We'll figure something out, Marcus said, but his voice was flat. I'm sorry, are you her son? Dr. Patterson asked. Yes.
Good.
She's going to need family support during this time. Hip fractures in seniors can be serious. The recovery process is long, and there's always a risk of complications. Dr. Patterson went on to explain the surgery, the risks, the rehabilitation process. I tried to listen, but I kept looking at Marcus and Bethany. Marcus was nodding along, but I could see his mind was elsewhere. Bethany wasn't even pretending to pay attention. She was texting someone under the chair where she thought the doctor couldn't see. After my surgery the next day, they visited for exactly 15 minutes. How are you feeling, Mom? Marcus asked, but he was standing by the door like he was ready to leave before I even answered. Sore, I said, but the doctors say the surgery went well. That's good, Bethany said, not looking up from her phone. Listen, we have some stuff we need to talk about. Bethany, Marcus warned quietly.
What?
She needs to know. Bethany finally looked at me. The apartment lease starts November 1st. We can't change that now. We've already put down deposits and everything. I was still groggy from the anesthesia, but I wasn't deaf. I understand, I said weakly. I'll manage. Mom, maybe this is a sign, Marcus said, moving closer to my bed but still not sitting down. Maybe it's time to seriously consider those places we talked about. You're going to need help during recovery, and then after that. A sign. My broken hip was a sign that I should give up my independence. I want to go home, I said firmly. Mrs. Brooks, Dr. Patterson said carefully when she came back in to check on me. Do you have someone who can help you at home? Someone to assist with daily tasks during recovery. I looked at my son and his wife. My family. The people who were supposed to love me and take care of me when I needed them most. Yes, I lied. I have help. They brought me home 3 days later. The ride from the hospital was quiet. Marcus helped me into the house with my walker, which made me feel about 100 years old. The walker was this ugly metal thing with tennis balls on the bottom legs to help it slide across the floor. It squeaked when I moved, and I had to concentrate hard to coordinate my steps so I wouldn't fall again. You sure you'll be okay, Mom? Marcus asked, but he was already looking at his watch. He had to get back to work, he said. Important client meeting. I'll be fine. We'll check on you, Bethany called from the car. She hadn't even come inside. Maybe this weekend. They didn't check on me that weekend. Or the next one. For 2 weeks, I struggled alone in my house. Getting up the stairs to my bedroom was impossible, so I slept on the living room couch. The couch Richard and I had picked out together 15 years ago, back when we thought we'd grow old together on it, watching movies and reading books and enjoying our retirement. Now it was just a place for me to collapse in pain every night. Taking a shower meant risking another fall, so I made do with sponge baths at the kitchen sink. Making meals was exhausting. Standing at the stove for more than a few minutes left me dizzy and weak. The worst part was the loneliness. The house felt enormous around me. Every creak and settling sound made me jump. Every trip to the bathroom was an adventure in pain management. Every night was an exercise in trying to find a position that didn't make my hip scream. My neighbor, Mrs. Chun, helped when she could. She was 73 herself, a tiny woman who'd lost her husband 2 years ago. She brought me groceries and checked on me daily, but she couldn't do everything. She couldn't help me shower or get dressed or deal with the physical therapy exercises the hospital had given me. "You need more help than I can give," she said sadly during one of her visits. "Don't you have family who can stay with you?" I didn't have the heart to tell her that my family was too busy with their new apartment and their new life to bother with their broken old mother. I called Marcus twice asking for help. The first time, Bethany answered. "Oh, Natalie," she said, and I could hear the annoyance in her voice. "Marcus is so busy with the move. We're packing and dealing with all the apartment paperwork. Can't Mrs. Chen help you?" "I just need someone to help me shower," I said quietly. "I haven't had a real shower in a week. Can't you just take baths instead? Or maybe hire someone? There are services for that kind of thing." Services I couldn't afford. But I didn't tell her that. The second time I called, Marcus answered but sounded irritated. I could hear boxes being moved in the background. "Mom, we're in the middle of moving. Can't this wait? I just need someone to drive me to physical therapy. The bus doesn't run near the clinic, and I can't drive myself yet. Ask Mrs. Chen. Or call a taxi. Mom, I really can't talk right now. We're trying to get everything moved before the weekend. When will you have time to help?" I asked. "I don't know. After we get settled, I guess. Maybe next week." But next week never came. On Halloween night, sitting alone in my dark house because I couldn't get to the door to give out candy, I made a decision. I was done being helpless, done being a burden, done being ignored. The house was completely dark because I turned off the porch light and the living room lamps. I didn't want kids knocking on my door when I couldn't safely get up to answer it. So I sat in my chair in the dark, listening to children laughing and running up and down the street, visiting all the houses except mine. It reminded me of when Marcus was little, how excited he'd get about Halloween. How Richard and I would take him trick-or-treating through the neighborhood, and then come home to sort through his candy and listen to him tell us about every house he'd visited. Now my own son couldn't be bothered to check if I was alive. That's when I picked up my phone and made one call. "Henderson and Associates, this is Patricia speaking." "Hello, I'd like to speak with Harrison Henderson, please." "This is Natalie Brooks." "Mrs. Brooks, how wonderful to hear from you. Let me get Harrison right away." Patricia's voice was warm and familiar. I'd known her for years. She'd been Harrison's secretary back when Richard and I were building our catering business. Harrison had helped us with the legal side of things, the contracts and business formation and insurance issues. Harrison Henderson had been Richard's best friend and business partner before Richard and I got married. They'd known each other since college, had started their real estate development company together right out of school. When Richard decided to leave the company to start our catering business, Harrison bought out his share and wished us well. Their friendship never suffered from the business change. If anything, it got stronger. Harrison became like family to us, had always been there for us through thick and thin. Harrison had always told me that if I ever needed anything at all, I should call him. He'd said it at Richard's funeral, and he'd repeated it every time we'd run into each other over the years. "Natalie." His warm voice came on the line. "How are you, sweetheart?" "I've been better, Harry. I need to ask you about something." "Name it. Remember when Richard passed? You said if I ever wanted to sell the house, you'd handle everything for me?" "Of course. That offer still stands. Are you thinking of selling?" I looked around my living room, at the family photos on the mantel, at the memories built into every corner. The wedding picture of Richard and me, both of us so young and happy. The photo of Marcus's high school graduation. The picture of Richard and me at our catering company's 10th anniversary party. All those memories, and what did I have to show for them? A son who couldn't be bothered to help me shower.
Yes.
I think it's time. Okay. We can definitely help with that. The market is really good right now. That neighborhood has gotten very popular with young families. I'd estimate your house could go for around $850,000, maybe more. My heart almost stopped. 850,000? I'd had no idea. Richard and I had bought this house in 1982 for $89,000. We'd thought we were stretching our budget at the time. We'd paid it off years ago, but I'd never thought much about what it might be worth now. Probably more, honestly. Richard always said that house would be worth a fortune someday. He was right. You've got 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, that gorgeous kitchen you two renovated, the big backyard. Plus, it's in the Westfield School District, which is highly desirable for families. Richard had been right about a lot of things. I'd been sitting on a gold mine and didn't even know it. Harry, I need to ask you for another favor. Anything. I want to keep this sale quiet for now. Can you handle everything without it being obvious I'm the seller? Harry was quiet for a moment. Natalie, is everything okay? This sounds like there's more to the story. It will be okay. Can you do that for me?
Yes.
We can set up an LLC, handle everything through that. The sale would be completely private. But honey, why all this secrecy? I'll explain later. How long would the whole process take? If we price it right and market it well? In this market, maybe 30 days. Maybe less. These family homes are selling fast.
Perfect.
Let's do it. Natalie, where are you planning to go? Do you have somewhere lined up? I'll figure it out. Sweetheart, you don't sound like yourself. Are you sure you're making this decision for the right reasons? Harry had known me for over 20 years. He could hear the pain in my voice, even if my own son couldn't. I'm making it for the only reasons that matter anymore, I said. My own. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking. Marcus and Bethany thought I was a helpless old woman they could dump in a nursing home. They thought I had nothing to offer, nowhere to go. They thought I needed them more than they needed me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The for sale sign went up on a Tuesday morning. I watched from my living room window as neighbors walked by, pointing and talking. Mrs. Chen saw it first and came hurrying over. Natalie, what's this about? She asked, worry clear in her voice. You're selling? Yes, Mrs. Chen. It's time for a change. But where will you go? This is your home. I'll find a new home. Maybe it's time for an adventure. Mrs. Chen looked skeptical, but she didn't argue. She'd lived long enough to know that sometimes people need to make big changes for reasons that don't make sense to anyone else. News travels fast in small neighborhoods. By noon, my phone was ringing. Mom, Marcus sounded confused. Mrs. Chen called me. She said there's a for sale sign in your yard. I'd given Mrs. Chen Marcus's number during my recovery, in case there was an emergency and she couldn't reach me. Now I regretted that decision. That's right.
What do you mean that's right?
You're selling the house. Yes. Without talking to us. Mom, this is a huge decision. You can't just dash. I can do whatever I want with my house, Marcus. Last I checked, my name is the only one on the deed. There was silence on the other end. I could hear Bethany's voice in the background, but I couldn't make out the words. But where will you live? I'll figure it out. Mom, this is crazy. You can't just sell your house without having a plan. Who says I don't have a plan? What plan? That's between me and my real estate agent. More silence. Then I heard Bethany's voice more clearly. Let me talk to her. Natalie. Bethany's voice was sharp. What's this about selling the house? I'm selling it. This is because you're mad about us moving out, isn't it? This is just spite.
No, Bethany.
This is just me taking control of my own life. You can't make major decisions like this when you're emotional. You're clearly not thinking straight. The nerve of this girl. The absolute nerve. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. Natalie, be reasonable. You've lived in that house for decades. It's full of memories. You can't just throw all that away because you're upset. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing what I want to keep and what I'm ready to let go of. We're coming over, Marcus said, taking the phone back. We need to talk about this face to face. I'm not changing my mind. We'll see about that. They showed up 20 minutes later, Bethany marching up to my door like she was going to war. She was dressed like she'd come straight from work. Sharp black suit, heels that clicked on my front porch, hair pulled back in a severe bun that made her look older and meaner than her 28 years. Marcus looked tired. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Moving stress, probably. Or maybe guilt. Mom, what's going on? Marcus asked as soon as I let them in. This is crazy. What's crazy is you thinking you could push me into a nursing home. We never said nursing home, Bethany protested. We said retirement community. There's a big difference. Same thing. You wanted me out of the way. That's not true, Marcus said, but he wouldn't look at me. Really? Then why haven't you checked on me once since I came home from the hospital? Why haven't you returned my calls? We've been busy dash. Too busy for your mother, who just had surgery? Bethany crossed her arms. Natalie, you're being unreasonable. We have our own lives, our own responsibilities. We can't drop everything every time you need something. I asked for help twice in 2 weeks.
Twice.
Once to help me shower, once to drive me to physical therapy. You could have hired someone for that, she said. There are services. With what money? You think my Social Security covers home health aides? Marcus looked uncomfortable. Mom, if you needed money for help, you should have said something. I shouldn't have to pay strangers to do what family is supposed to do. We're not your caregivers, Bethany snapped. We're your family, not your employees. You're right. You're not my caregivers. You've made that very clear. Marcus sat down heavily on my couch. Mom, where are you going to live? Do you have a plan, or are you just acting out? I have a plan. What plan? That's not your concern anymore. Of course it's our concern. Bethany snapped. Your family? Really? Because for the last 2 weeks, I've felt like an unwanted house guest in my own life. They stayed for another hour, trying to talk me out of selling. The same arguments, over and over. Bethany kept saying I was being emotional. Marcus kept saying I should think this through. But I had thought it through. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I was doing. Mom, Marcus said as they were getting ready to leave, just promise me you won't do anything else crazy. Don't sign any papers without talking to us first. I'm 67 years old, Marcus. I don't need your permission to live my life. But you're not thinking clearly. This whole thing with selling the house, it's not rational. What's not rational about a woman deciding what to do with her own property? You're making major life decisions while you're angry and hurt. That's never a good idea. I'm not angry, Marcus. I'm free. Harry called me 3 days later with the news I'd been hoping for. Natalie, we've got 5 offers. The highest is $920,000, all cash, 30-day close. $920,000? I had to sit down. Even with my walker, the shock nearly knocked me over. I gripped the phone tighter, sure I'd misheard. The buyers are a young couple, both doctors. They want to move fast. They love the kitchen renovations you and Richard did, and they're excited about the school district for their future kids. We can have this wrapped up by December 7th if you want.
Yes.
Let's do it. Sweetheart, can I ask what you're planning to do with that money? Live my life, Harry. For the first time in years, I'm going to live my life exactly how I want. Finally, after so long of feeling powerless, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power, control, freedom, and something else, a kind of excitement I hadn't experienced since Richard and I were building our business together. For the first time since my fall, I wasn't thinking about pain or limitations or what I couldn't do. I was thinking about possibilities. My phone rang again an hour later. Marcus. Mom, I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe we were wrong about the retirement community thing. Maybe. Okay, we were wrong. But selling the house is too extreme. If you need help, we can help. Where was this help 2 weeks ago when I couldn't get up the stairs?
We made mistakes. I know that.
But this house is your home. It's where you and Richard built your life together. It's where I grew up. You can't just throw all that away. Now, he wanted to talk about memories and family history, when it's served his purpose. Marcus, I've already accepted an offer.
What?
Already. $920,000. The silence on the other end was so long I thought he'd hung up. 900. He finally whispered. And 20,000. Yes. Mom, that's a lot of money. There it was. Not concern about me losing my home. Not worry about where I'd live. Just amazement at how much money was involved. Yes, it is. What are you going to do with it all? Whatever I want. But Mom, you should be smart about this. Invest it. Plan for your future. Think about what happens when you're 80 and need care. I am planning for my future. What kind of plan involves spending $900,000? The kind of plan that doesn't include waiting around for my son to remember I exist. That's not fair. Isn't it? Marcus, when's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time you visited just because you wanted to see me, not because you needed something or wanted to tell me what I should do with my life? Marcus was quiet. That's what I thought. Maybe we should sit down with a financial advisor. Help you figure out the best way to dash. Marcus. Yeah, I'm 67 years old. I've been planning and saving and being responsible my whole life. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I built a business with your stepfather and sold it to take care of myself in retirement. For once, I'm going to do exactly what makes me happy. What does that mean? You'll see. Mom, please don't make any more big decisions without talking to us. We love you, and we want what's best for you. If you loved me, you would have been here when I needed you. We're here now. Now that you know I have money, you mean? That's not what this is about. Isn't it? I hung up before he could answer. While Marcus and Bethany were trying to figure out what I was up to, I was busy making it happen. I spent the week looking at apartments online. Not the sad little senior living places they'd shown me, but real apartments. Nice ones. The kind of place I'd always dreamed of living but never thought I could afford. I found it on Wednesday. A luxury high-rise downtown, 32nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the whole city. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, modern kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, concierge service, gym, pool, even a rooftop garden. The rent was $4,200 a month. Old me would have fainted at that number. The cruise cost $18,000. The apartment deposits and moving expenses came to another $15,000. The building was called the Metropolitan, and it was everything I never thought I'd have. Doormen in uniform who opened doors and carried packages. A lobby with marble floors and fresh flowers. Elevators that moved so smoothly you couldn't feel them going up. I made an appointment to see the apartment that afternoon. The leasing agent, a polished young man named David, clearly didn't expect much when I hobbled in with my walker. He probably saw a lot of older people who came to look at expensive apartments they couldn't afford. But when I told him I was interested in a long-term lease and could put down 6 months' rent up front, his attitude changed completely. Mrs. Brooks, let me show you the unit personally, he said, ushering me toward the elevator. The apartment was even better than the photos. The windows faced west, so I'd get beautiful sunsets every evening. The kitchen was bigger than the one Richard and I had shared for 20 years. The master bedroom had a walk-in closet bigger than my current living room.
But it was the view that sold me.
32 floors up, I could see the whole city spread out below me. I could see the park where Richard and I used to walk on Sunday mornings. I could see the building where our catering company used to be. I could see the future.
I'll take it, I said.
Don't you want to think about it? Maybe bring your family to see it.
No.
I'll take it. I also made an appointment with a financial advisor Harry recommended. Not because Marcus thought I should, but because I wanted to be smart about my new fortune. Jennifer Walsh was a woman about my age who specialized in retirement planning. Her office was warm and comfortable, with family photos on her desk and certificates on the wall that proved she knew what she was talking about. "Mrs. Brooks," she said, reviewing the numbers I'd given her, "with $900,000 in cash, even after taxes, you're looking at quite a comfortable future." How comfortable? Well, if you invest conservatively, you could easily live on $60,000 a year without touching the principal. Maybe more if we're smart about it. $60,000 a year. That was more than my monthly Social Security and small pension combined. What if I wanted to live on more than that? Say, $80,000 a year? Jennifer ran some numbers on her calculator. That's totally doable for at least 15 years, probably longer depending on market performance and how the investments grow. And if I wanted to do some traveling, see the world, do things I've always wanted to do. Mrs. Brooks, with this amount of money, you could do whatever you want. Within reason, of course. Within reason. But what was reasonable at 67? Playing it safe? Sitting quietly in a retirement community playing bingo and waiting to die? Or finally living the life I'd always wanted? "I want to set up the investments," I said. "But I also want access to cash for immediate expenses. I'm making some big changes." "What kind of changes?" "The kind that cost money, but buy happiness." Jennifer smiled. "Those are often the best kind." I hired professional movers and didn't tell Marcus and Bethany. I figured they'd find out when they drove by the house and saw the moving truck. They did. Marcus called me at 9:30 in the morning, just as the movers were loading my bedroom furniture onto their truck.
"Mom."
"What's happening?" "There's a moving truck at the house." "I'm moving." "Where?" "To my new apartment." "What new apartment?" "When did you get an apartment?" "Yesterday." "I signed the lease yesterday." "You can't just move without telling us." "I can do whatever I want, Marcus. I'm an adult." "But we don't even know where you're going." "The Metropolitan on 5th Street. 32nd floor." "The Metropolitan?" "Mom, that place is expensive." "I can afford it." "How can you afford it?" "Your Social Security isn't enough for Dash. I'm using the money from selling the house." "All of it?" "As much as I want it." Bethany's voice came through in the background, getting louder until Marcus put her on speaker. "Natalie, this is insane. You're blowing your entire inheritance on rent." "It's not an inheritance, Bethany. It's my money from my house." "But what happens when it runs out? What happens when you're 80 and broke and need care?" "I'll worry about that when I'm 80. "This is exactly why you need someone to help you make these decisions," she shouted. "You're clearly not thinking straight." "I'm thinking straighter than I have in years." "Mom," Marcus said, "just slow down. Let us help you." "Help me what?" "Go back to being the sad old lady you ignore unless you need something." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? When's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time you visited just because you wanted to see me?" Marcus was quiet. "That's what I thought." "We're coming over," Bethany said. "We need to stop this before you make a huge mistake." "The house closes in 2 weeks, Bethany." "This isn't a mistake. It's my life." "You're having some kind of breakdown. People don't just sell their houses and move into expensive apartments at your age." "What age is that, Bethany?" The age where I'm supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps of attention you throw my way. We never treated you like that. You treated me exactly like that. My new apartment was everything I dreamed of and more. The view from the 32nd floor was incredible. I could see the whole city spread out below me, lights twinkling like stars when the sun went down. The concierge, James, helped me with my packages when I came back from grocery shopping. He was a distinguished man in his 50s who treated every resident like royalty. "Mrs. Brooks, how was your day?" he'd ask every time I walked through the lobby. "Wonderful, James. How was yours?" "Better now that I've seen your smile." It sounds cheesy, but after months of being treated like a burden, having someone genuinely happy to see me was like medicine. The doorman, Robert, always smiled and asked how my day was going. He was a younger guy, maybe Marcus's age, with kids of his own. He'd tell me about their school plays and soccer games, and I'd tell him about the new restaurants I was trying or the books I was reading. The maintenance staff fixed anything I needed fixed within hours. The housekeeping service came twice a week and left my apartment spotless. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't have to take care of anyone but myself. And I loved it. I ordered takeout from expensive restaurants just because I could. Thai food, Italian, Japanese, cuisines I'd never tried because Richard was a meat and potatoes man and Marcus had always been a picky eater. I bought fresh flowers for my living room every week. Not the grocery store carnations I used to buy, but real florist arrangements with exotic blooms I couldn't even name. I signed up for the building's yoga classes and started swimming in the pool every morning. My hip was healing well, and the gentle exercise felt good. At last, after months of being dismissed and ignored, I woke up excited about the day ahead instead of dreading it. Marcus called every few days, always with the same message. I was being reckless. I was wasting money. I needed to think about my future. What he really meant was, I needed to think about his future, about what he might inherit when I died. Too bad. That ship had sailed. "Mom, you can't keep spending money like this," he said during one of his calls. "You're going to go through everything you have." Maybe. Mom, this is your retirement savings. This is supposed to last you for the rest of your life. It will last me for the rest of my life. The life I want to live. What if you get sick? What if you need care? What if something happens and you need money for medical bills? Then I'll deal with it when it happens. But if you've spent everything on rent and fancy dinners, Marcus, when did you become so worried about my financial security? I've always worried about it. Really? Because when I asked you to help me shower after my surgery, you told me to hire someone. When I needed a ride to physical therapy, you told me to take a taxi. You never seemed worried about my financial security then. That's different.
How?
Because now you're throwing money away. I'm not throwing it away. I'm spending it on things that make me happy. But Mom, Marcus, let me ask you something. If you found out you had 6 months to live, would you spend it saving money for someone else, or would you spend it doing things that brought you joy? That's not the same thing, isn't it? I'm 67 years old. I don't know how many good years I have left. I'm not going to spend them pinching pennies so you can inherit a bigger bank account. It's not about the inheritance. Then what is it about? Marcus couldn't answer that question. On Thanksgiving, they invited me to dinner at their new apartment. I could have gone, but I didn't want to spend the holiday listening to lectures about my poor choices. Instead, I went to a fancy restaurant downtown called Chez Laurent. It was the kind of place Richard and I had always talked about trying but never did because it seemed too expensive, too fancy for people like us. I wore my best dress, a navy blue one I'd bought for Marcus's wedding but had never worn since. I did my hair and put on makeup and felt beautiful for the first time in months. The maitre d' seated me at a table by the window, and I ordered lobster thermidor and a glass of expensive French wine. For dessert, I had creme brulee and champagne. The couple at the next table was celebrating their anniversary. They'd been married 40 years, they told me when we struck up a conversation. They came to Chez Laurent every Thanksgiving because it was where they'd had their first date. "What's your story?" the woman asked me. "Are you celebrating something special?" "Yes," I said, raising my champagne glass. "I'm celebrating my independence." After so many lonely months, I felt more thankful than I had in years. The house sale closed on schedule. December 7th, 2024, a date I'll never forget. After taxes and fees, I had $847,000 in my bank account, more money than I'd ever imagined. I celebrated by booking a cruise to Europe for February. 3 weeks, 7 countries, a luxury suite with a balcony. The trip would cost $18,000. Old me would have been horrified at spending that much money on a vacation. New me clicked purchase without hesitation. I was going to see Paris. I was going to see Rome. I was going to see all the places Richard and I had talked about visiting but never did because we were always too busy, too practical, too worried about spending money on frivolous things. Marcus found out about the cruise when I mentioned it during one of his weekly check-in calls. "You're spending $18,000 on a cruise?" "Yes." "Mom, that's insane. You could live for 6 months on that money." I could also see Paris and Rome and Barcelona. But what if you get sick on the ship? What if something happens? What if there's an emergency and you need money? Then I'll deal with it. You're being completely irresponsible. I'm being completely free. Mom, please. Just think about this rationally. I am thinking rationally. I'm 67 years old, Marcus. Richard died when he was 59 before we got to do any of the things we planned to do together. I'm not going to make the same mistake. But what about your future? What about when you're older and need care? What about it? Marcus, are you planning to take care of me when I'm older and need care? Well, we'd figure something out. Like you figured something out when I needed help after my surgery? That was different.
How?
Marcus couldn't answer that either. The day before Christmas Eve, Marcus and Bethany showed up at my apartment without calling first. The concierge called up to announce them, one of the many perks of my new building. "Mrs. Brooks, you have visitors." Marcus and Bethany Brooks. "Send them up, James." "Thank you." When they knocked on my door, I took my time answering. Let them wait in the hallway for a minute, looking at the expensive carpet and crystal light fixtures and realizing exactly how much money I was spending on my new life. They looked around my apartment like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the city. Modern furniture I'd bought to replace the old pieces I'd left behind. Original art on the walls, not expensive pieces, but things I'd chosen because I liked them, not because they matched the furniture or went with the decor. Fresh flowers everywhere. A bar cart with good wine and crystal glasses. Books stacked on side tables. Novels I was finally reading for pleasure instead of self-help books about aging gracefully or accepting your limitations. "This place is nice," Marcus admitted, walking to the windows. "Really nice." "It's huge," Bethany said, her voice tight. "And this view is amazing." "Thank you." "How much is the rent?" she asked. "None of your business." Bethany turned around, her face flushed. "Natalie, we're just worried about you." "Are you? Or are you worried about your inheritance?" "That's not what this is about," Marcus said quickly, but he couldn't meet my eyes. "Isn't it? You ignored me when I was in your way. Now that I have money, suddenly you're concerned about my welfare." "We love you, Mom." "Really? When's the last time you told me that?" Marcus was quiet again. He couldn't remember either. "Look," Bethany said, sitting down on my new sofa like she was preparing for a long conversation, "we know we made mistakes. We should have been there for you after your surgery." "Yes, you should have. But this is going too far in the other direction. You're throwing money away just to prove a point. What point is that? That you don't need us. I don't need you. The words hung in the air like a slap. Marcus looked like I'd punched him. Mom, I raised you, Marcus. I sacrificed everything for you. Worked 2 jobs when your father left us. Put you through college when I could barely afford groceries. Built a business with Richard partly to make sure you'd have opportunities we never had. I know that.
Do you?
Because the minute I needed help, you wanted to put me away somewhere. You wanted me gone. We never said dash. You wanted me out of sight, out of mind. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. That's not what we wanted, Marcus said quietly. Then what did you want? We wanted. He stopped, looking lost. We wanted our own life.
Good.
Now you have it. And I have mine. But Mom, this apartment, the cruise, all this spending, it's not sustainable. Let me worry about what's sustainable. We just don't want you to run out of money and have nowhere to turn. You mean you don't want to be responsible for taking care of me if I run out of money? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Bethany leaned forward. Natalie, we're trying to rebuild our relationship with you. We're trying to do better. Why now? Why didn't you try to do better when I was broken and alone in my house, begging for help? Because we were selfish, Marcus said finally. Because we were focused on our own lives and we didn't see how much you were struggling. It was the first honest thing he'd said to me in months. And now we see that we almost lost you completely. You did lose me completely. Mom, please. Give us another chance. To do what? To monitor my spending? To tell me I'm being irresponsible? To wait for me to run out of money so you can put me in a nursing home?
To be your family again.
You had your chance to be my family. You chose not to take it. They left a few minutes later, promising to call more often, to visit more often, to do better. Empty promises from people who'd already shown me exactly who they were. But for the first time, Marcus looked genuinely upset. Not angry at me for being difficult, but sad. Like he was finally understanding what he'd lost. Too little, too late. February came, and I was on a ship in the Mediterranean, writing from my balcony suite as we sailed toward Barcelona. The water was the most beautiful shade of blue I'd ever seen. For months earlier, I'd been a lonely old woman sleeping on her couch because she couldn't get up the stairs. Now, I was having champagne for breakfast and watching dolphins swim alongside our ship. The people on this cruise were incredible. There's Margaret, a 72-year-old widow from Boston who'd sold her house and decided to spend her remaining years traveling the world. She'd already been to 6 continents and had plans for the 7th. Life's too short to sit at home feeling sorry for yourself, she told me over dinner one night. My kids think I've lost my mind, but I've never been happier. There was Frank and Dorothy, married 50 years, taking their dream trip for their anniversary. They'd saved up for this cruise for 10 years, putting away a little money each month. We figured we better do it now while we're still healthy enough to enjoy it, Dorothy said. You never know what tomorrow brings. And there was me, Natalie Brooks, 67 years old, finally living her life on her own terms. In Rome, I threw a coin in the Trevi fountain and made a wish. Not for Marcus to come around, not for my old life back, but for the courage to keep choosing myself every single day. In Paris, I went to the Louvre and stood in front of the Mona Lisa for 20 minutes just looking. I ate croissants for breakfast and drank wine with lunch and bought myself a silk scarf that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. In Barcelona, I walked through Gaudi's cathedral and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Wonder. Pure, childlike wonder at the beauty of the world. Marcus called me during the trip. A lot. I answered exactly once. Mom, where are you? I've been calling and calling. I'm in Italy. Italy? You're actually in Italy? Rome, to be specific. I'm standing in front of the Coliseum. Mom, this is crazy. Come home. We need to talk.
About what?
About this whole situation. About how we can fix things between us. There's nothing to fix, Marcus. I'm exactly where I want to be. But we miss you. Do you miss me? Or do you miss the idea that you can control what I do with my money? That's not. Mom, please. Just come home and let's work this out. I am home. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong. I hung up then and turned my phone off for the rest of the day. The rest of the trip was blissful. No phone calls, no guilt trips, no one telling me I was being irresponsible or that I needed to think about my future. I was thinking about my future. I was creating it one beautiful day at a time. When I got back from Europe, I had 88 messages on my answering machine, all from Marcus. I listened to the first few. Apologies, explanations, promises to do better. I fast-forwarded through the rest. The last message was from 2 days ago. Mom, I know you're mad. I know we screwed up. But this is getting ridiculous. You can't just cut us out of your life forever. We're family. Call me back. Please. I picked up the phone and dialed his number. Mom, he answered on the first ring. Thank God. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. I've been living my life. For 3 weeks? Without calling? Without letting us know you were okay? Marcus. Yeah. Quit faking it.
What?
You heard me. Quit faking like you care. We both know this isn't about worry. This is about control. This is about money. This is about you realizing that the meal ticket you threw away actually had some value. Mom, that's not Dash. Remember when I fell? When I was lying on my kitchen floor with a broken hip, begging for help.
What did you say to me?
Marcus was quiet. You said quit faking it. You said stop the drama. Your own mother, broken and in pain, and you accused me of putting on a show. I made a mistake, Dash.
No, Marcus.
You showed me exactly who you are. And now I'm showing you exactly who I am. What does that mean? It means I'm done. Done being your safety net. Done being your backup plan. Done being someone you only call when you need something. Mom, please, Dash. I spent 67 years putting other people first. Your father, when he was alive. Richard. You, your whole life. I gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left of me. Well, guess what? I found myself again. And she doesn't have time for people who treat her like garbage. Really? When's the last time you asked about my dreams? My hopes? What I wanted to do with my life? When's the last time you called just to hear my voice? Marcus couldn't answer because he'd never asked those questions. You know what I learned in Europe? I learned that 67 isn't old. I learned that life doesn't end just because your kids move out and your husband dies. I learned that I can be happy without needing anyone's permission or approval. So what now? You're just going to pretend we don't exist. I'm going to live my life. If you want to be part of it, you need to earn that privilege. And calling me 88 times because you're mad I'm not answering isn't earning anything. How do we earn it? Figure it out. I'm not going to teach you how to be a decent human being at this stage of your life. I hung up and turned off my phone. Finally, I felt completely at peace. 6 months later, I'm writing this from my balcony, 32 stories above the city I now call home. The sunset tonight is spectacular, all pink and orange and purple streaks across the sky. This morning I got back from a month in Ireland with Margaret. We've become close friends, 2 women who refuse to fade quietly into the background. Next month, we're going to Japan together. After that, maybe Australia. Marcus and Bethany have tried to visit twice in the past 6 months. Both times, I told James to tell them I wasn't available. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. They had their chance to love me when I needed them most, and they chose indifference. They had their chance to support me when I was vulnerable, and they chose judgment. Now, they want a relationship because they've realized what they lost. Not me, the person. Me, the inheritance. Me, the safety net. Me, the woman who always said yes to whatever they needed. That woman is gone. The woman who replaced her is stronger, happier, and completely uninterested in their guilt-driven apologies. I've spent $127,000 of my house money so far. Travel, rent, food, experiences, things that bring me joy. Marcus would be horrified at my irresponsible spending. I've never been happier in my life. Mrs. Chun writes to me sometimes. She says the young couple who bought my house has turned it into a showplace. They have 2 little kids who play in the backyard, where Marcus used to play. She says their laughter reminds her of the old days, when the house was full of life and love. I'm glad it's being loved again. The other day, I ran into an old friend at the farmer's market downtown. She looked at me with amazement. "Natalie, you look incredible. What's your secret?" I thought about it for a moment. What was my secret? I stopped asking permission to live my own life. I told her. It's true. For the first time in 67 years, I'm exactly who I want to be, exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what makes me happy. Last week, I got a letter from Marcus. A real letter, handwritten on nice paper. In it, he apologized. Really apologized. Not for getting caught, not for the consequences of his actions, but for the actions themselves. He said he'd been thinking about what I'd said, about how he'd never asked about my dreams or hopes. He said he realized he'd never really seen me as a person, just as his mother. Just as someone whose job it was to love him unconditionally and ask for nothing in return. He said he understood now why I'd cut him out of my life. He said he deserved it. The letter was 3 pages long. He told me about therapy he'd been going to, about how he was trying to understand why he'd treated me so badly. He told me about his marriage, how Bethany had started treating him the way he'd treated me, dismissive, controlling, demanding. He said he finally understood how I'd felt. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't ask to see me. He just wanted me to know that he was sorry and that he hoped I was happy. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and went out for dinner with Margaret. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have a relationship with my son again. Maybe someday he'll earn back the privilege of being part of my life. But that day isn't today. Today, I'm going to call the travel agent and book that trip to New Zealand Margaret's been talking about. Today, I'm going to have lunch at that new restaurant on the top floor of the Marriott. Today, I'm going to buy myself fresh flowers and a good bottle of wine and celebrate another day of living exactly the life I want to live. Marcus can call 88 more times if he wants. Quit faking it. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you, that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to justice to reconciliation. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join our community of strong people who refuse to be anyone's doormat. Remember, sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. Until next time, this is Her Real Stories, where family drama meets justice and love always wins, but only when it's real.